Mommy, please don't let them take me. You know what is wrong with me. I feel something in my stomach. Those were the words that broke everyone in the ICU. Words whispered by a 10-year-old boy who had been strong for too long. Ethan reached out with trembling hands. Not to his father, not to the doctors, but to Maria, the black housekeeper who had raised him like her own. Maria stepped forward, heart shaking, tears burning her eyes. Please, sir, let me help him. He told me this for months. Please listen. But Jonathan Hale, the billionaire father drowning in fear, snapped with a voice that cracked the room. Get out, Maria. You are just a housekeeper. You know nothing. Let the doctors work. Everyone froze. Even the machines seemed to hold their breath, but Ethan reached again, his voice weak. Maria, please. It is moving again. It hurts. That was the moment Maria stopped caring about rules, wealth, or the angry billionaire shouting behind her. She ran into the ICU, pushed past the stunned doctors, and held Ethan's face with both hands. Baby, open your mouth. Let me see, she whispered, and then something happened that none of the 17 specialists in that room could explain. Maria reached inside gently, praying she was not too late, praying she was right. A second later, she pulled her hand back, shaking, holding something long, dark, alive. The entire room gasped. A nurse screamed. A doctor stumbled backward. Jonathan Hale went pale and grabbed the wall for balance because Maria had just pulled something living out of Ethan's mouth. Something no test had seen. Something no doctor had imagined. Silence filled the room. Only Ethan's breathing, suddenly stronger, broke it. Everyone stared at Maria like they were seeing a miracle and a nightmare at the same time. And that shocking moment was only the beginning. Because before that day, before Maria risked everything, something far bigger had already been set in motion. Something that would shake Dallas, Texas to its core. The ICU door stayed open. Yet, no one moved. Everyone kept staring at Maria's trembling hand as the thing she pulled from Ethan's mouth curled weakly on the white sheet. It looked wrong, like something that did not belong in the body of a child. The room felt colder. Even the monitors seemed confused as they beeped in a calmer rhythm, showing Ethan's breathing slowly rising again. Jonathan Hale pressed both palms against the glass divider. His voice shook when he whispered, "What did you just pull out of my son?" He looked terrified, but there was something else in his eyes, too. Something that came too late. Regret. He had screamed at Maria only seconds earlier, certain she knew nothing. Now he could not even meet her eyes. Maria did not speak. She held Ethan's hand with both of hers and felt warmth returning to him. She had felt him slipping away for days. She had heard him whisper strange things when the doctors walked out. She had watched his small body weaken while everyone searched for answers in machines and scans. And she had known something the others refused to hear. "Stay with me, baby," she whispered near his ear. "Maria is right here. I am not going anywhere." A doctor finally moved forward, gently lifting the creature with a pair of forceps and sealing it in a glass jar. He shook his head slowly, lost in confusion. Nurses murmured, their eyes wide with fear. Everyone knew this was impossible. Nothing like this should be inside a child. Nothing like this should be inside anyone. Jonathan stepped into the room finally. He looked at Maria, then at Ethan, then at the jar. "How did you even know to do that?" he asked, barely able to speak. How could you possibly know something was in his throat? Maria did not answer him. Not yet. The moment carried too much pain, too much memory. She was not just looking at Ethan. She was looking at her father again. She was looking at the way he gasped for air in that small hospital years ago. The same gray color on his skin. The same fear in his eyes as he said something that haunted her ever since. That flashback felt like it lived inside her. She could still see the night she sat by her father's bed. The same quiet machines, the same cold walls, the same disbelief from every doctor who passed by. Her father pointed to his throat over and over. His fingers trembled. "Maria, something is in here," he whispered. "It feels alive." She was younger then, scared and helpless, begging nurses to listen. They dismissed her, saying he was confused, saying he was tired, saying she was imagining things. They told her to sit down and stay quiet. They told her she was only seeing grief. And then her father died before anyone understood what was happening. His case was closed, forgotten, treated like an unexplained illness. No one ever spoke of it again. Until now, "Maria," Ethan whispered weakly. His voice dragged her out of the memory. He tried to lift his hand. She held it gently so he would not strain himself. His breathing was slow but steady. His color had softened, no longer the lifeless gray she saw earlier. He blinked at her as if her face was the first safe thing he had seen in days. "I am here," she whispered. "You are safe." "Doctor." Sarah Bennett moved closer. Her eyes locked on the jar. "This is not normal. This is not something that happens naturally. We need to run tests. Call specialists. Send this immediately to the lab." Jonathan swallowed hard. "Are you saying someone put this thing inside my son?" No one answered, but the silence said enough. Maria finally looked at him. Her voice was steady but filled with emotion. "He told me for months that something was inside him. He said it scratched. He said it moved. No one listened." She looked down at Ethan's face. "He trusted me because I always listened." Jonathan closed his eyes for a moment. His breath began to shake. He had all the money in the world, all the access to doctors and specialists. Yet the only person who heard his son was the housekeeper he had shouted at only minutes earlier. Before the room could settle, a nurse hurried in with a tablet. "Sir, more doctors have arrived. They want to speak with you. They said it is urgent." Jonathan stepped back, still shaken. "Fine, bring them in." But Maria stayed beside Ethan, brushing his hair gently, whispering to him, watching every small breath like it was a treasure. She was not thinking about the billionaire outside. She was not thinking about the shocked doctors. She was thinking about her father. The memory returned sharper this time. She remembered sitting by his body after he passed, refusing to leave him, refusing to believe it was over. She remembered the smell in his room, the faint, strange odor that made her stomach twist. She smelled the same odor today when she walked into Ethan's room for the first time. That was the moment she knew this was not sickness. This was something else, something that had haunted her for years. A pattern, a sign, a warning. She whispered quietly to herself. "Daddy, I saw it again. I was right." Ethan stirred. "Maria," he whispered with effort. It stopped. It stopped moving. She pressed her forehead against his hand. Tears spilled before she could stop them. "Yes, baby." It stopped. "You are safe now." Outside the ICU, voices grew louder as more doctors rushed in. But inside, Maria focused on the small boy breathing softly in front of her. She would not let anything happen to him. Not again. Not like before. As she held his hand, a thought cut through her chest with terrifying clarity. If the parasite came from outside the country, then someone brought it here. Someone who wanted this child to die slowly, quietly, without suspicion. This was no accident. And deep inside, Maria knew this was only the beginning. The glass jar on the metal tray kept making soft sounds as the creature moved inside it. Even though the lid was sealed, Maria felt that noise in her stomach. She kept her eyes on Ethan. His breathing was still slow, but something in him had changed. His chest moved with more strength. His face carried a small trace of color. It was almost too small to see, but Maria saw it clearly. She always noticed things he could not say with words. Nurses hurried around the room, whispering to each other, pointing at the jar, shaking their heads slowly. They were not whispering because of fear alone. They were whispering because nothing in their training explained what Maria had done. A housekeeper with no medical training walked into an ICU and saved a child in front of 17 of the best doctors in the world. Jonathan stood by the wall, his back straight, his face stiff. He kept staring at his son, then at Maria, then at the jar. He looked like someone trying to breathe but failing. He placed one hand on the wall like he needed support. His voice came out quiet when he finally spoke. "Maria," he said, "what made you do that to my son? Why did you think to look inside his mouth?" Maria kept her hand on Ethan's chest, feeling the soft movement that told her he was still here. She did not want to speak, but she knew hiding the truth now would help no one. She sat down slowly beside him, then looked at Jonathan with eyes that carried years of memories. "You did not know my father," she said. "He died the same way. No one listened to me." Jonathan frowned. "What do you mean?" Maria looked at Ethan again before she answered. Her voice was soft but steady. "My father kept saying something was inside his throat. He said it felt alive. He said it scratched him. The doctors told him it was stress. They told me I was imagining things. Then he died without anyone understanding what happened to him." The room grew quiet again. Even the machine seemed quieter. A nurse near the doorway paused as if she needed to hear every word. "I thought I was losing my mind then," Maria continued. "But when Ethan started telling me the same thing, the same pain, the same strange smell in the room, I knew it was not in his mind. I knew because I had seen it before." Jonathan covered his mouth with his hand. He looked away, his face tight. He had lived his life solving problems with money, power, and experts. Now the truth was standing in front of him, spoken by the housekeeper he had yelled at earlier. Before he could respond, Sarah Bennett entered the room holding a chart. Her expression was serious. She waited until she reached the foot of the bed. "His vitals are improving," she said. "Whatever Maria removed from his throat was harming him for a long time. Without that thing inside him, his organs are starting to respond to treatment." A nurse added, "His oxygen is rising on its own. We have never seen this kind of recovery after such a drop." Sarah placed the chart down. "Jonathan, we need to talk privately. This is no longer just a medical case." Jonathan shook his head. "No, say it here. Maria is staying." Sarah hesitated, then nodded. "Very well. What we found is not natural. That parasite does not live in this country. That means it did not get into your son by accident. Someone placed it there." The words hit the room like a stone. Maria felt her stomach twist. Jonathan's face changed from fear to shock, then to something darker. "That thing was put inside my son?" he asked. "Yes," Sarah said. "We believe so." Maria felt Ethan move slightly under her hand. He whispered something. She leaned closer. "Do not leave me," he said. Quietly. "I will not," she answered. "I promise." Sarah stepped closer. "Maria, you said he spoke to you for months. Did he ever tell you anything else? Anything strange? Anything about someone touching him or giving him something?" Maria thought carefully. She would not guess. She would not rush. "He told me he felt something moving inside him. He told me it hurt when he swallowed, but he never said someone touched him." Sarah nodded slowly. "We will need to ask him later when he gains more strength." Jonathan moved closer to the bed. He placed his hand on Ethan's leg. "I am going to fix this," he said softly. "No one hurts my son. No one." Maria watched him. She had seen Jonathan angry before. She had seen him frustrated. She had seen him distant. But this was different. This was a father who finally understood what he almost lost. Moments later, the door opened again. A security officer stepped inside. "We need the father and the attending doctor in the hallway," he said. We reviewed a small part of the camera footage from earlier. You need to see it. Jonathan looked at Ethan one more time, then followed Sarah out the door. The officer closed it behind them. Maria looked at the boy beside her. His eyes were half open, almost sleepy. She stroked his forehead gently. You scared me today, she whispered. You scared everyone. Ethan blinked. His eyes softened. I told them something was wrong, he whispered. No one believed me. Maria felt her throat tighten. I believed you, he nodded as if that was all he needed to hear. Then he closed his eyes again. His breathing stayed calm. Maria looked toward the door Jonathan had walked through. She did not know what the camera showed, but something inside her felt unsettled. Her father's face came back to her again. Not the sick version, but the smile he had before he left for Africa. He told her he would return with gifts. He told her he would come back strong. He never did. She placed her hand on Ethan's again. I could not save him, she whispered. But I will protect you. Outside the room, voices rose. Something urgent was happening. Maria sat up straight, her body alert. She did not know what new truth was waiting outside, but she knew this was not the end. It was only the next painful step. The voices in the hallway grew louder, but Maria stayed by Ethan's side. Her hand rested on his, steady and gentle. She watched his chest rise in a soft rhythm. It was a small blessing after so many days of fear. She whispered a quiet thank you, then closed her eyes for a moment. The room was calm now, almost too calm, and that calmness opened the door to memories she had pushed down for months. Ethan had not started complaining yesterday. His quiet warnings began long before the hospital lights and machines. It started in the mansion, in the one place he should have felt safe. Maria remembered the first day he walked into the kitchen with his hand on his throat. He stood there holding his favorite toy, his face pale, his voice soft. Maria, something is scratching inside me, he said. She knelt in front of him. She placed both hands on his cheeks so he would see she was listening. Where does it hurt? She asked. He pointed to his throat. Here, it feels like something moves when I swallow. She had felt her stomach twist with worry. She checked his temperature. She looked into his mouth. Nothing seemed wrong, yet something in his eyes told her the pain was real. She carried him to the living room where Jonathan was speaking with two business partners. They were dressed in sharp suits, holding documents and talking in serious tones. Maria waited until they paused, then stepped forward. Sir, she said softly. Ethan says something hurts in his throat. It does not sound like a normal sickness. He says it scratches. Jonathan barely looked up. He waved a hand toward her. Give him water, he said. Children complain. He is fine. Maria wanted to say more, but the partners were watching her. She lowered her head and walked Ethan back to the kitchen. She made him warm tea and sat with him until the pain eased. But the next day, he came again. Maria, it moved again. Please help me. Her chest tightened. She took him to Jonathan's study. The door was half open. Jonathan was on the phone pacing back and forth. Maria knocked gently and whispered, Sir, Ethan is not well. He says he feels something moving. Jonathan ended the call sharply and stepped toward them. Maria, how many times must I tell you? He said, stop bringing small problems to me. You are here to work, not to worry me with childish stories. She lowered her eyes. I am only telling you what he feels. Jonathan looked at his son. Ethan, stop making things up. Your nanny is too soft. Go play. Maria, return to your duties. He turned his back before she could say another word. That night, Ethan could not sleep. Maria heard soft footsteps in the hallway near midnight. When she walked out of her small room, she saw him standing by her door in his pajamas, holding his throat again. It hurts, Maria, he whispered. It feels alive. She knelt and pulled him into her arms. Come here, she said softly. Tell me everything. He sat on her bed and leaned on her shoulder. I tried to tell Dad, he said. He did not listen. Maria stroked his back. I listened, she said. I always listen. His breathing slowed. She stayed awake with him until he finally fell asleep against her arm. She did not move until morning. The days that followed were the same. Ethan kept coming to her with fear in his eyes. Some days the pain was small. Some days it was stronger. Maria told Jonathan every time, but his answer never changed. Maria, go back to work. He would say, stop acting like you know better than trained doctors. He said those words so often that she could hear them even when he was silent. One afternoon, the pain grew worse for Ethan. He sat on the floor of the hallway crying, his small hands pressed to his throat. Maria picked him up quickly and carried him to Jonathan's office. She did not wait for permission. She pushed the door open and said in a firm voice she hardly recognized. Sir, something is wrong with him. Please listen just this once. Jonathan looked annoyed. What now? He asked. His throat, she said, trying hard to keep her voice steady. It hurts him every day. This is not simple pain. It feels like something is inside him. Jonathan stood up sharply. Maria, you are a housekeeper, he said. Nothing more. Stop speaking like a doctor. Do your job. Those words pierced her deeper than she expected. Not because of the insult, but because Ethan heard it, too. He looked at her with tears. He was too young to hide. She hugged him closer, feeling something break quietly inside her. Jonathan continued speaking when he should have stayed silent. You are paid to clean and watch him, not diagnose him. Leave the room. Maria walked out carrying Ethan. But she felt something cold settle in her chest. She had tried everything she could. She had spoken softly. She had spoken firmly. She had begged. She had warned. She had cried in silence. Nothing reached him. 2 days later, Ethan woke with sweat on his face and fear in his eyes. He told her he felt something crawling inside him. Maria tried to call the family doctor, but Jonathan said Ethan only needed rest. By sunset, the boy could barely eat. By night, he was shaking. That was the moment Maria made her choice. She wrapped him in a blanket, carried him to her car, and drove him to the hospital herself. Jonathan arrived later, angry at first, but when he saw Ethan's condition, his anger turned to fear. Maria remembered every moment of that drive. Ethan lying in the back seat, whispering, "Please help me," his voice tired and small. She remembered her hands shaking on the steering wheel. She remembered praying for strength. She remembered promising him she would not leave him. Back in the ICU now. She looked at him sleeping. She ran her hand across his forehead. She remembered how he held on to her clothes that night in the car, too weak to sit up. A soft knock came from the doorway. A nurse peeked in. "They need you in the hallway," she said quietly. "It is about what they found on the hospital camera." Maria rose slowly. She gave Ethan one more look. His breathing still gentle, his face calmer than it had been in days. She whispered, "I will be right here. I am not leaving you." She stepped toward the hallway, unaware that the truth waiting outside would change everything she thought she knew. The hallway outside the ICU felt colder than the room she left behind. Maria stepped out slowly, wiping her palms against her skirt. She did not know what she would hear, but every part of her body carried a quiet fear. A few steps ahead, Jonathan stood with 2 security officers and Dr. Sarah Bennett. They were gathered around a screen held by one of the guards. Their faces were tight, their eyes focused. No one seemed willing to speak first. When Jonathan noticed Maria approaching, he looked away briefly as if unsure how to face her after everything that happened. Sarah nodded gently, inviting Maria closer. "We found something in the camera footage," Sarah said. Her voice was steady, but her eyes carried tension. Something you need to see. Maria moved until she could see the screen. The footage showed a hallway inside the hospital. It looked normal at first. Doctors walked past. Nurses carried charts. Lights glowed softly over the floor. Nothing unusual. Then the video shifted to a time late at night. The hallway was almost empty. Only one man walked into frame. He wore a white coat. He held a clipboard. He walked with confidence like someone used to being in places others could not enter. But the moment Maria looked closely, something felt wrong. His steps were slow, almost too controlled. He looked left and right before entering Ethan's room. The officer paused the recording. "Do you recognize him?" he asked. Maria shook her head. "I have never seen him before." The officer nodded. "That is because he does not work here." Jonathan frowned. "What do you mean?" The officer zoomed in on the badge hanging from the man's coat. The plastic glare faded on the screen, revealing a blurry name and a hospital logo that looked correct at first glance. But when the officer enlarged it again, the truth appeared clearly. "There is no staff member by that name," the officer said. "And that badge was printed illegally. It is not real." Jonathan stepped back as if the floor moved. "He entered my son's room," he whispered. Sarah nodded. "More than once. He came twice before Maria brought Ethan in. He came again after admission. Each time he stayed for a few minutes and left without speaking to nurses." Maria felt her breath slow as the truth settled inside her. This was not an illness. This was not a mystery life had thrown at Ethan. This was something far darker. Someone had done this. Someone had caused all of this pain. The officer pressed play again. The man in the white coat stepped through the door. The camera did not show the inside of the room, but Maria felt sick knowing exactly what was happening behind that door. When the video continued, he walked out a minute later. He slipped something small into his pocket before walking down the hallway and disappearing into the elevator. The officer paused the screen. "We believe he placed the parasite in your son's throat," he said. "The lab confirmed that Ethan could not have gotten it by accident." Jonathan's face changed slowly. His jaw tightened. His eyes filled with a depth Maria had never seen in him. He looked like a man torn between anger and fear. "I trusted the best doctors," he said softly. "I trusted this hospital. I never imagined someone would harm my child like this." Sarah placed a hand on Jonathan's arm. "We are going to find him," she said. "We already asked for police intervention. They are on the way." Maria listened quietly. She felt the weight of her own memories falling into place. Her father's words, his fear, his confusion. She remembered the strange smell in his room. She remembered nurses rushing around without answers. She remembered sitting beside his bed as he struggled to speak. He tried to warn her, too. He died trying. Now Ethan had almost followed the same path. Sarah turned towards Maria. "We reviewed more footage," she said. "There is something else." Maria felt her stomach tighten. "What did you find?" Sarah moved to a different part of the screen. "Look carefully," she said. This time, the footage showed Jonathan's mansion driveway. The angle came from one of the hospital's outside cameras. The same man in the white coat, now dressed in casual clothes, walked toward a car parked near the emergency entrance. He placed a small cooler in the trunk before driving away. Jonathan looked at the officer. "How did he even come near my home?" he asked. The officer lowered his eyes. "We believe he was watching your family. He knew your routines. He knew when you moved. He planned this carefully." Maria closed her eyes for a moment. She felt a quiet anger rise from a place she had locked inside herself for years. The pain of losing her father. The pain of being ignored. The pain of watching Ethan fight something invisible inside his small body. All this time, someone was watching. Someone was waiting for the right moment. Someone chose a child who trusted everyone and expected nothing bad. Sarah looked at Maria again. "Ethan is safe for now," she said. But we need to understand how deep this goes. Jonathan stepped forward. He looked at Maria with a seriousness she had never seen in him. You saved my son, he said. His voice was quieter than his usual tone. I did not listen when you tried to warn me. I failed him, but you did not. Maria did not answer. She did not trust her own voice. She felt too much at once. Jonathan turned to the officer. Find the man. I want to know who he is. I want to know why he targeted my child. I want everything. The officer nodded. Police are already searching for him. Sarah placed a gentle hand on Maria's shoulder. Come back to Ethan for now, she said. He needs someone he trusts beside him. Maria followed her back into the room. Ethan lay quiet under the soft lights, his breathing steady, his small hand resting on the blanket. She sat beside him, watching his face, remembering every moment he tried to warn her. Every time he whispered his fear, every time he said something was alive inside him, she leaned closer and whispered softly, "You were right, baby. I should have pushed harder. I should have made them listen earlier. I am here now. I will not let anyone touch you again." She took his hand in hers. Outside the door, footsteps rushed past as security moved down the hall. Inside the room, Maria stayed still. Her fingers wrapped gently around his. She knew this nightmare was not over. Something darker waited on the other side of the truth. Night settled over Dallas Mercy Hospital, but the halls were not quiet. Security officers moved from room to room, checking doors and speaking softly into radios. Nurses whispered in corners. Doctors gathered near monitors with heavy faces. The news about the intruder had spread through the hospital like a heavy cloud, and every person felt the weight of it. But inside Ethan's room, the world felt smaller, gentler, and painfully still. Maria sat beside his bed, holding a warm cloth to his forehead. Ethan slept with short breaths, his small fingers curled around hers. She watched his chest rise, thankful for every breath. The fear of losing him wrapped around her heart. Yet something stronger held her in place. Her care for him, her promise to protect him. The door opened quietly. Jonathan stepped inside, closing it behind him. His shoulders looked tired, but his eyes were sharp. He walked closer and stood across from Maria, watching his son sleep. They found something else in the footage, he said softly. Maria kept her eyes on Ethan. What did they find? Jonathan sat down slowly. He took a deep breath before speaking. This was not random, he said. That man has been around us for longer than we thought. He came near the mansion more than once. Maria's chest tightened. Why did no one see him? He blended in, Jonathan answered. He acted like someone who belonged. He walked like a delivery man one day, like a repair worker another. He studied us. He studied my son. Maria felt her hand tremble. She pressed it against Ethan's. He wanted to harm him, she said. He knew Ethan was innocent. Jonathan looked down. He did not care about innocence. Silence settled between them, heavy and painful. Maria thought of her father again, his quiet suffering, his unanswered questions. She felt the same fear echoing now. Not for herself, but for the child sleeping beside her. Jonathan cleared his throat. The police believe this man planned everything. He used a parasite no doctor would recognize. He counted on confusion. He counted on time running out. His voice shook slightly, and he counted on me being too blind to see danger. Maria looked at him, her voice soft but honest. He counted on people never listening to the ones who see the small things. Jonathan lowered his head. Maria did not speak to hurt him. She spoke because it was the truth, and sometimes truth landed with more weight than anger. A nurse walked in quietly to check the monitor. His numbers are stable, she said. He is still weak, but he is improving. If there is no setback, he may be able to wake fully tomorrow. Maria breathed out slowly. Thank God. The nurse smiled gently at both of them before stepping out. Jonathan leaned back in his chair. Maria, he said quietly. I thought money could fix any problem. I thought having the best doctors meant safety, but I could not protect him, not even in my own home. Maria looked at him for a long moment. You love him, she said. But love is not about control. It is about listening. If you listened earlier, things may have been different. Jonathan closed his eyes. I know. Ethan shifted slightly. Maria brushed his cheek. He relaxed again. She watched him with a tenderness she had carried for years. She had known him since he learned to walk. She had been there for his first day at school. She had held him when he cried for his mother. She had seen every joy, every fear, every small detail Jonathan missed because of work, meetings, and long hours away. Jonathan looked at Maria. He trusts you, he said, more than me. Maria did not answer right away. She thought of all the nights Ethan stood at her door, whispering his worries, asking for comfort, searching for someone who would take his words seriously. He came to me, she said softly. Because he felt safe. Jonathan nodded slowly, accepting a truth he had ignored for too long. There was a sudden knock at the door. A security officer stepped inside. Sir, we have something you need to hear, he said. We found a message. Jonathan stood quickly. A message from who? The officer looked uneasy. From the man we are searching for. He left it on one of the back hospital cameras. Maria felt her stomach tense. What did it say? The officer looked at her. It was meant for the father, but you should hear it, too. He took a small device from his pocket and pressed a button. A distorted voice filled the room. You took everything from me, Jonathan. I took something from you in return, but she ruined it. The voice grew sharper. The housekeeper. She watched too closely. She paid attention. She broke the plan. Maria felt her heart slow in her chest. She did not move. She listened. The voice continued, you cannot protect him. I will return. I will finish what I started. The message ended with a soft static noise. Jonathan's face went pale. He is coming back. The officer spoke carefully. We have police positioned outside. No one is entering this floor without being checked, but we needed you to hear this. He is not finished. Maria felt something cold spread through her chest. She looked down at Ethan. His small hand rested on hers. She curled her fingers gently around it. I will not let him touch this child again, she whispered. Jonathan looked at her, then at Ethan. Neither will I. The officer nodded and stepped out of the room. Jonathan sat again, but he did not relax. He watched the door, the windows, the corners of the room. Fear for his child had changed him. It had stripped away his pride and replaced it with something raw and honest. Maria kept her eyes on Ethan. She spoke softly so only the boy could hear. You are safe. We will protect you. Outside, officers moved in coordinated steps. The hospital prepared for danger. But inside the room, one thing was clear. This was not over. The storm had only begun to show its true face. The hours that followed moved slowly, each minute carrying a quiet tension. Officers guarded every door. Nurses walked with careful steps. The hospital lights felt brighter than usual, as if the building itself refused to sleep. Maria stayed beside Ethan, watching him rest, her hand wrapped around his. She whispered calm words whenever he shifted. She stayed so still that even the machines seemed to follow her rhythm. Jonathan stood near the window, looking out at the dark city. He had not left the room since the message was played. His face looked older, as if fear had carved new lines on his skin. He watched the officers outside the door, then looked at Maria again. She did not speak to comfort him. She knew silence sometimes held the truth better than words. Just before dawn, Ethan opened his eyes for the first time fully since the creature was removed. He blinked slowly and turned his head toward Maria. You stayed, he whispered. I told you I would, she answered gently. He tried to smile, but it came out small and tired. It does not move anymore. No, Maria said softly. It is gone forever. Jonathan rushed to the bedside. He placed his hand on his son's shoulder, trying to keep his voice steady. Ethan, can you hear me well? Do you feel strong? Ethan nodded weakly. A little. Jonathan swallowed hard. He looked at Maria as if seeing her through new eyes. He had spent years walking past her, speaking only in short instructions, assuming she knew little, assuming her place was lower than his. Now he saw the truth clearly. Without her, he would be standing in front of an empty bed. Ethan lifted his hand slightly toward Maria again. She took it gently. Daddy, he said softly, looking at Jonathan. Please stop shouting at her. She saved me. Jonathan felt something inside him break. He sat down slowly. His voice came out heavy. You are right. She did save you. She saved all of us. Before Maria could respond, the door opened. Dr. Sarah Bennett entered with 2 officers. Their faces held something different. Relief mixed with finality. We found him, one officer said. The man who entered the hospital. He returned to the building just like he said he would. Maria felt her breath stop for a moment. Is he here now? No, the officer replied. He tried entering through the back entrance. We were ready for him. He was arrested. He will not come near this child again. Jonathan let out a long breath he had been holding. Maria closed her eyes quietly, thanking God for mercy. Sarah moved closer to the bed. Ethan is safe now, she said. His body is healing. With time, he will recover fully. Ethan looked at Maria. Can I go home? Not yet, she said softly. But soon. Jonathan reached for Maria's hand. She looked surprised by the gesture. You have done more than anyone, he said slowly. I can never repay you for what you did. Maria started to pull her hand away, but he held it gently. Please let me say this, he continued. I was wrong. I spoke to you without respect. I treated you like you were less. I pushed you aside when you were trying to protect my son. I was blind and you still protected him. You still protected me. Maria lowered her eyes. I did it because I love him. Jonathan nodded. And I did not see that love because I was too busy seeing status. You are not a housekeeper to us anymore. You are family. The room fell quiet. Maria felt tears fill her eyes, but she blinked them back. I only did what any mother figure would do for her child. Jonathan looked at her with new understanding. Then let me be clear. You will never be seen as a lowlife again. Not in my home, not in my presence. Ethan squeezed Maria's hand. I want you with us always, he said softly. She smiled at him through her tears. I will stay as long as you want me. Jonathan stood again and walked toward the window. He stared outside before speaking. Maria, I want to offer you something. He turned back to her. A permanent place in our home, not as a housekeeper, but as someone who cares for my son in a way no one else can. She shook her head lightly. Sir, I do not need a title. You do, he said. You need honor. You need respect, and you will have both. Maria did not answer right away. Her heart felt full. She looked at Ethan, at the small boy who trusted her more than anyone. She thought of her father, of what she lost, of what she gained, and of how love sometimes came from pain. She nodded slowly. I will stay, she said. Not because of a title, but because he needs me. Ethan smiled faintly. I love you, Maria. She leaned down and kissed his forehead. I love you, too. A soft knock came again. This time it was the hospital director. He stepped inside with careful respect. Miss Maria, he said. We want to honor you for what you did. You saved this child's life when no one else understood what was wrong. Maria shook her head. I did what anyone with love would do. The director smiled kindly. Love may guide many, but not many act with courage. You did. Jonathan placed a hand on Maria's shoulder. You changed everything, he said softly. Even my heart. Maria finally let the tears fall. They were not tears of fear. They were tears of release, of truth, of finally being seen after years of silence. Hours later, the sun rose gently over Dallas. Light filled the hospital room with a soft glow. Ethan slept peacefully, his body healing. Jonathan stood by the window. Maria sat beside the bed, humming quietly. The nightmare had ended. The wound in her heart, the one that began with her father's pain, had found meaning. She looked at Ethan, safe and warm, and felt something she had not felt since she was a child. Peace. Jonathan turned toward her. Maria, he said softly. Thank you for saving my son. Thank you for saving me. She smiled. Thank you for finally listening. He nodded. I will never stop. In that quiet room, in the soft morning light, a new family was formed. Not by blood, not by wealth, not by power, but by love, sacrifice, and truth. And Maria, once dismissed, once ignored, once spoken to as a lowlife, now sat where she always belonged. At the center of a family she helped keep alive. But let's go back even further, to understand how this all began. Months before the ICU drama, in the grand halls of the Hale mansion, life seemed perfect on the surface. Jonathan Hale was a titan of industry, building his empire in tech and real estate, rarely home but always providing. Ethan, his only son, wandered the vast estate with the curiosity of a child, but with a shadow of loneliness that only Maria could see. She had joined the family years ago, after Ethan's mother passed away in a tragic accident. Jonathan had been devastated, throwing himself into work to cope, leaving Maria to fill the void. She cooked his meals, read him bedtime stories, bandaged his scraped knees, and listened, truly listened, to his every word. One evening, as the sun set over the sprawling gardens, Ethan came running to Maria in the kitchen, out of breath. Maria, I saw a strange man outside the gate today. He was watching me play. Maria paused, her knife hovering over the vegetables. What did he look like, baby? Ethan shrugged. Tall, with a hat. He smiled but it felt weird. Maria felt a chill, but dismissed it as a child's imagination. Little did she know, that was the first sign of the intruder circling their lives. As weeks passed, Ethan's complaints started subtly. At first, it was just a tickle in his throat after drinking juice. Maria thought it was allergies, common in Texas springs. But then, during a family dinner, rare occasions when Jonathan was home, Ethan coughed violently, clutching his neck. Jonathan glanced up from his phone. What's wrong, son? Ethan gasped. It feels like something's stuck. Maria rushed to his side, patting his back. Let me see. But nothing came out. Jonathan waved it off. Probably ate too fast. Kids do that. Maria's worry lingered, but she said nothing, not wanting to overstep. That night, as she tucked Ethan in, he whispered, Maria, promise you'll always believe me. She kissed his forehead. Always, my love. The next morning, Jonathan left for a business trip, leaving instructions for Maria to handle everything. During those days alone with Ethan, the boy's symptoms worsened. He avoided eating, saying it hurt to swallow. Maria took him to the park to distract him, but even there, he sat quietly, hand on his throat. On the way home, she noticed a car following them, a dark sedan that turned away when she glanced in the mirror. Her instinct screamed danger, but without proof, she kept it to herself. Back at the mansion, Ethan drew pictures, innocent at first, but one showed a worm-like creature in a boy's belly. What's this? Maria asked gently. That's what I feel inside, he said matter-of-factly. Her heart raced. She remembered her father's stories from his travels abroad, warnings about exotic dangers. But pushing the thought aside, she called the family doctor, who prescribed cough syrup over the phone. Jonathan returned from his trip irritable, buried in calls. When Maria mentioned Ethan's drawing, he laughed it off. Imagination runs wild at his age. Focus on your chores. But Maria couldn't shake it. She began keeping a journal, noting every symptom, every odd occurrence. One entry read, "Saw the same car again today. Ethan complained of scratching inside. Must tell Mr. Hale." But when she tried, he snapped, "Maria, enough. You're not his mother." Those words stung, reopening old wounds from her past. Maria's own childhood had been marked by loss, her mother dying young, her father raising her alone until his mysterious illness claimed him. She had begged doctors then, too, only to be dismissed as a hysterical girl. Now, history was repeating, but she vowed not to let it. As Ethan's condition deteriorated, Maria's resolve grew. She researched online late at night, learning about rare parasites from tropical regions. It matched too perfectly, the symptoms, the smell she detected in his breath. One stormy evening, Ethan woke screaming, "It's moving. It's alive." Maria held him through the night, rocking him as thunder boomed. By morning, she confronted Jonathan in his office, journal in hand. "Look at this, sir. It's not imagination. He needs help." Jonathan skimmed it, then tossed it aside. "You're overreacting. If it's serious, the doctors will say so." But he agreed to a checkup, more to silence her than out of concern. At the doctor's office, tests came back normal. "See," Jonathan said triumphantly, "nothing wrong." But Maria saw Ethan's pleading eyes. On the drive home, she whispered, "I believe you. We'll figure this out." The intruder, meanwhile, was closing in. Security footage later revealed him posing as a gardener, slipping into the backyard to tamper with Ethan's toys or food, subtle ways to introduce the parasite. Maria caught glimpses, a shadow in the bushes, an unfamiliar face at the gate, but each time, Jonathan dismissed her paranoia. "You're seeing ghosts," he said. "Focus on the house." As Ethan's pain intensified, Maria's flashbacks to her father became more vivid. She remembered his final days, gasping, pointing to his throat, begging for someone to believe. She had failed him then, too young to fight. But now, with Ethan, she would not back down. One fateful night, Ethan collapsed in the hallway, barely breathing. Maria scooped him up, ignoring Jonathan's protests, and sped to the hospital. There, the story we know unfolded, the ICU, the extraction, the revelations. But even after the arrest, healing took time. Ethan spent weeks recovering, with Maria by his side every day. Jonathan, humbled, began therapy to address his neglect, learning to listen not just to experts, but to those who loved his son. Maria was promoted to family guardian, with a salary reflecting her worth. The family grew closer, sharing meals, stories, and laughter. Ethan thrived, drawing happy pictures now, of Maria as a superhero. The intruder, it turned out, was a disgruntled former employee of Jonathan's, seeking revenge for a firing years ago. His plan foiled by Maria's vigilance. In the end, this ordeal taught them all: wealth buys comfort, but love saves lives. Listening bridges gaps, and courage comes from the heart, not the wallet. Dear viewers, this story shows how one woman's love, courage, and unshakable belief saved a child when the world refused to listen. Maria was overlooked, insulted, and treated as less. Yet she became the only person brave enough to pull truth out of darkness. She protected Ethan when no one else understood him. And in the end, she transformed a home, a father, and a life. If this story touched your heart, please comment where you are watching from. And tell us what lessons Maria taught you about listening, love, and courage. Do not forget to like, subscribe, and share this video. And if you want more emotional stories from us, type more stories in the comments. You will be the first to get the next one. Now, Here are 3 powerful questions to engage your heart and spark meaningful comments. 1. If you were in Maria's position, would you have had the courage to keep fighting for Ethan even after being insulted and ignored? Why or why not? 2. Do you think Jonathan deserved forgiveness after dismissing Maria for so long? Or do you believe trust must be earned back slowly? 3. What moment in this story made you stop and think about how we treat people who seem less important than us? Share your answers below. We are reading every comment with love.